DICE return with another Battlefield title, and they have really seriously improved their Frostbite engine. What you see before you is the Xbox One version. I know many may doubt it, but this is possibly the best looking 60 FPS game I have ever seen, no matter what console or PC you play it on. Every time I always rave and wax lyrical about Frostbite engine and DICE's superior work, but here with Battlefield 1 they really have truly excelled themselves. This game would be beautiful looking even if it was running at half the frame rate, but the fact that it's running at 60 FPS and on top of all that, it's also booked the trend of being a 720p game. That's right, here on the Xbox One, this game is actually running more around the 900p region with all of the detailed visual effects, bombastic action and destruction. I am really truly amazed at what DICE have delivered here. In fact, I would go so far as to say that they are going to struggle to better this on any of the hardware they've currently got in their hands. And I really shudder to think just what the PS4 Pro version looks like. Then again, maybe not, because I also have access to the PC version, and now you can see what it looks like running at full settings, downscaled from 1440p to a 1080p image. That's around 134% in the scaling resolution settings in the menu. This is probably just below what you'll see on the PS4 Pro, but you can see the quality here, and it will be the same ultra settings, which means you get the benefit of much further draw distance, better quality shadows, screen space reflections, which are missing from the Xbox One and most likely the standard PS4 version. Now let's go back to the resolution that we talked about on the Xbox One. Now here it looks like it's using a dynamic resolution, but I'm not too sure if that's all that we are seeing here. The game obviously has the temporal anti-aliasing solution that DICE have been playing around with and adding to Frostbite engine over the past year or so, and here I believe they're using a reconstruction technique to improve the image quality even further, giving me a broad range of resolution counts. Now these range from 1624 by 945 and 1745 by 864. These are all approximately mined, and the other one that I've picked up is 1680 by 810. Now this means that it's running around or above 720p and just above 900p. So you're getting around a 1.36 million pixels to 1.7 million pixels at its highest count thus far. Now it may mean that it actually is running around a 900p buffer or even a 720p buffer, and then using a reconstruction technique with its temporal AA to improve the resolution and therefore the image quality. It's quite apparent instantly this is not a 720p game, and due to the game's TAA it looks incredibly clean and hides most of the jaggers and noise artifact, and even looks much crisper than you would expect at this resolution. Now on the Xbox One this means that it's the best looking version of Frostbite engine we've yet seen, and the performance really stacks up as well. On the PC you can obviously bump this up even further, like I've already covered. On the GTX 970 you can go above and beyond 1080 and still run similar performance levels with ultra settings as the Xbox One, which you can see on screen from the single player. Now I haven't had time to test the multiplayer yet, and that is because I've struggled to get into any games, which is not a great sign for a multiplayer centric title such as this, but I shall put it down to early launch and server woes due to the fact that it's probably being hammered quite heavily from the early access that EA Vault grants on both Xbox One and PC players. As such, I will cover that in my detailed head-to-head of both titles and the PS4 version at a later date, but I'll have as much time as I can to play the game on both PC and Xbox One and get back to you on how the multiplayer has improved. So for now, let's just stick to the single player and what we can see. So like I've already covered, looking at the actual basis, I think we've got a combination on Xbox One of around medium to high settings, but screen space reflections and other sacrifices on the GPU are intelligently used here to keep the performance levels high and the IQ level as crisp as it is. DICE's previous asset materials have been reused and enhanced here, seeing similar looking locations that we've seen before from Battlefield 4 and last year's Battlefront. With Frostbite being one of the earlier adopters to physically based rendering, helped immensely by their photogrammetry techniques, enhanced here delivering materials and composite work that combine very realistic specular and diffused materials across mud, wood, floors, buildings, stone, and obviously materials like the army fatigue fabric and the rain effects on the gun. And this is obviously enhanced by the adaptive tessellation we saw in Battlefront, but it looks to be used predominantly on the ground only. And this is obviously enhanced when you're blowing holes in the floor or when you're being shot at. Now this runs on the Xbox One and of course in the PC, which leaves us with settings that look very similar to around high on the average from the Xbox One to PC, but I will cover that in more detail once I've had the time. Texture filtering is also another high point, which is very well used and well balanced across multiple texture work in the game, and it hardly stands out at all. So in terms of performance, what are we looking at? Well, on PC, like I've already covered, with a GTX 970, 60 FPS at high settings at 1080 is an obvious level. In fact, 60 FPS at 1440 at around medium to high is also possible. Now you can run the game in the settings you're watching here at 1440 at ultra settings, and the performance levels are very similar to the Xbox One. And therefore it's not that bad performing title at all, hovering around the 45 to 50 FPS. It doesn't feel that bad, although with a mouse you obviously feel that response lag much more than you would on console with the joypad. But obviously with a solid menu option, that choice is yours. So on the Xbox One, is the performance equal? Well, like I say, it predominantly holds 60 FPS throughout large sections of the game, aside some sections in the tank and other areas where it can drop to mid-40s, but really these are short-lived and they don't really affect the gameplay too much, and it's like I say, it's much better on pad than it is on mouse. Some of the sections are down to visual GPU levels. From my early analysis, the game does use volumetric light effects, atmospheric scattering, and obviously HDR bloom, and this also supports native HDR on the Xbox One S, and most likely the PS4 and PS4 Pro once those versions release, but I haven't had a chance to test that just yet. This is all running on standard SDR view. Now it may also hit PC at a later date, which will all come down to the forthcoming wave of HDR monitors inbound shortly, and obviously update to DX11 and 12, but I'm sure it won't be that long before PC gamers can enjoy HDR gaming even on a 4K HDR TV. So overall, what are the issues with the title? Well, there are a few dips every now and then, like I say. Some of these are in much quieter sections when you're walking along streets. Some are obviously asset streaming sections from both the hard drive and the CPU. Some look to be context switching from the CPU as well, with long hangs over 100 milliseconds, but these are short-lived. And obviously could also be just standard bad code or bugs in the system, which will be ironed out later when its actual eventual launch date hits next week. I'm sure there's more patches to come. Another minor niggle is the abundant use of 30 FPS pre-rendered movie sequences. Although they do use in-engine assets and obviously in-engine render, they are offline and therefore have additional post-processing effects and run at half the frame rate. This obviously stands out like a sore thumb, so it would have been nice to see an option to run these at 60 FPS, or at least encode them at 60 FPS rather than 30. But again, a few glitches here and there, so I'm sure time, as always, is the one thing the team never had enough of. But I cannot stress how impressive the game is to play and enjoy, and this includes the sky-high sound production and sound design. Frostbite is certainly a great engine, and DICE certainly have the best sound designers out there in video games at the moment. Their sound design, implementation and processing is again a cut above the rest, and it really adds to the atmosphere. If you can, play this game with a decent surround system or headphones, because it really deserves it. My hat and ears are doffed once again to the DICE sound design team.
Take a look at that! Keep pushing, boys! Charge!
Ultimately, in terms of the technology, sound and presentation here, nothing can be argued on either machine that Frostbite and DICE have not used everything available to them to the absolute maximum. Both Xbox One players and PC players are delivered an abundantly beautiful and well presented and superb performing title that really maximises all the hardware you have available, with additional options and benefits on PC to improve that quality even further and refine what is already a absolutely stunning experience. No one can feel as if they've been left out in the cold, and this will obviously include PS4 players next week. But it's still Battlefield, and it feels like Battlefield, and it's certainly not going to change anyone's mind. It's fun, it's the best presented and best looking game, and probably the best handling one from control mechanisms, but it's not going to change anyone's mind. I do prefer the story system split down into single chunks, therefore you get individual character plots running through the same timeline that run in parallel, which means you don't have the kind of jaggy, rough around the edges story that we are used to from DICE single player titles. Sorry guys, no offense. Anyway, that's it for now. My first contact is up. If you enjoyed this or anything else that I've put together, and then please feel free to subscribe and support the channel by liking and sharing where appropriate. Leave all your thoughts and your feedback below, and I'll be back soon with some PSVR. I'll see you on the next one.